The midnight hour brings more than crowing. Tonight, we crack open a ritual that's as sinister as it is excellent. Welcome back, my ghastly little flock, to Cluck of the Coven, the October series from the Hen House Files. Around here, we don't just tell spooky stories, we hatch them. So fluff those feathers, light your lanterns, and settle in tight, because tonight, we're pecking deep into a ritual so old, even the witches whisper about it. This is the Midnight Egg. Ashwood Glen was the kind of town that still smelled like soil and smoke after sunset. A farming community tucked between rolling hills and black pine woods. It thrived on harvests and superstition. Every porch had its charm. A silver horseshoe nailed upside down, a rowan branch hanging over the door, or a mason jar filled with feathers and salt. No one called them spells. They were just precautions. At the center of town stood Hayes Farm, a 150-year-old property with a sagging red barn and a chicken coop no one had touched in years. The last of the Hayes family, Nora, had inherited the land when her parents passed away, but she hadn't dared live there. Not since her grandmother's funeral, when the priest had whispered that the Hayes line was touched by the moon. It was the kind of phrase you don't understand until it's too late. On the first night of October, Nora returned to the property with her dog, Rusty, planning to clear it out for sale. She didn't expect to stay long, but as midnight crept over the fields, Rusty began barking, frantically, toward the chicken coop. The coop was rotten, its door half-hinged, the air thick with the smell of dust and old feathers. Nora swept her flashlight through the shadows. Something glinted beneath the roosts. She knelt and froze. An egg sat perfectly centered in the dirt. It was larger than a hen's, shaped almost too round, and black, like polished stone. Under the beam of her flashlight, faint colors shimmered beneath its surface. Blues, purples, reds, like oil floating on water. It looked alive. She touched it, warm, and then, whispering, not from outside, from inside the egg. She staggered back, flashlight trembling. The whispers grew louder, overlapping voices, chanting in a language she didn't recognize. And then, clear as glass, a single phrase broke through the noise. Feed it the light of the moon, and it will remember. The light bulb above the coop flickered once, and shattered. The next morning, Nora convinced herself she was imagining things. She took the egg into town, hoping to pawn it or at least get an explanation. But the local antique dealer, an old man named Mr. Crowder, turned pale the moment she unwrapped it. "Where did you find this?" he asked, voice cracking. "Old chicken coop on my property." Crowder backed away. "Bury it. Don't sell it. Don't keep it." "Why?" He hesitated, then whispered, "Because the grain line still feeds the hollow." That night, Nora found the name again, Grain, in the family chest her grandmother had kept locked for decades. Inside were bundles of yellowed letters and a diary with the initials E.G. March 14, 1843. The hollow breathes again. The egg was laid beneath the moon, black as cinder, warm to the touch. The crows gathered in hundreds. We said the words, and it answered. The coven is alive once more. April 1st. The egg must hatch beneath blood and light. One will mother it. One will feed it. The rest shall burn. Evelyn Grain, her grandmother's grandmother. Nora stared at the handwriting, her heart pounding. That night, she placed the egg on her table and sat with it for hours. It pulsed faintly, as if in rhythm with her own heartbeat. When the clock struck midnight, she heard the whisper again. "Mother." The disappearances began 2 days later. First, it was Jamie Holt, the dairy driver. His truck was found by the tree line, headlights on, door wide open. The seat was covered in black feathers. Then, Marianne Lewis, a teacher who lived alone at the edge of town. Her neighbor said she saw a flock of crows slam against her windows the night before she vanished. By the end of the week, 3 people were missing, and the sheriff blamed coyotes. But Nora knew better. Every time someone vanished, the egg grew warmer. It started rocking one night, slow, rhythmic, like it was breathing. Nora tried to move it back to the barn. But the moment she turned her back, she heard it roll across the floor and stop at her feet. Rusty began growling at it, first standing on end. When Nora looked closer, she saw a hairline crack forming across the shell. It happened during the full moon. The house was dark except for the faint blue light spilling through the windows. Nora sat at her table, watching the egg pulse with each tick of the clock. Her hands shook, but she couldn't look away. Crack. A thin fracture split the top. Tap, tap, tap. From inside, something pushed. The shell gave way, and a wet, slick limb reached out, pale as candle wax, ending in small, clawed fingers. Nora stumbled backward as the thing inside pulled itself free. It was not a chick. It was human-shaped, but twisted. Its skin was covered in thin black veins, and small feathers sprouted from its shoulders. Its face was smooth, except for a vertical slit where a mouth should be. When it opened, she heard whispering, dozens of voices, as if the air itself was speaking through it. "Mother," it said, "feed me." Nora fled to Crowder's shop, dragging the diary with her. But when she arrived, the shop was dark, the door hanging open. Inside, she found Crowder's body sprawled across the counter, eyes pecked out, feathers stuffed into his mouth. Written on the wall in dried blood, "It remembers." Nora flipped through Evelyn's diary, desperate for answers. Near the end was a passage written in shaky handwriting. "The egg cannot die. Each century, it hatches anew. The mother feeds it, and through her, the hollow breathes. We are born again in her flesh." A later note followed in darker ink. "If one burns the hatchling before it feeds, the coven will bleed to death, but the mother will take its place." The page was torn after that. Nora understood what it meant. The thing she had tried to destroy was part of her bloodline. By trying to kill it, she had cursed herself. When Nora returned home, every light in the house was out. The walls dripped with condensation. The air smelled like wet feathers and decay. The creature sat at her table, larger now, child-sized, bones jutting out under pale skin. Its mouth slit wider when it saw her. "Mother," it hissed, "you came back." "Why me?" Nora whispered. It tilted its head. "Because you are Evelyn's echo." The blood remembers its shell. As it spoke, the windows rattled. Outside, hundreds of crows gathered, covering every inch of the fence, the roof, the trees. The moonlight turned their feathers silver. Then, one by one, they began slamming themselves into the house. Feathers rained through broken glass. The noise was deafening, wings, beaks, claws scraping wood. The creature lifted its head and screamed, a sound that wasn't human, wasn't animal, something between a crow's caw and a child's cry. Nora fell to her knees. Her vision blurred. When she looked up again, she was no longer in her kitchen. She was in the woods. The clearing was ringed with stones glowing faintly red. Around her stood women, dozens of them, faces shadowed by hoods. Their hands were raised, palms carved with spirals. "The mother has returned," one of them said. "I'm not," Nora began. "You are," said another. "You carry the shell." The egg was never an object, it was a promise. The creature appeared behind her, taller now, its face split open into a black beak. "You fed me with fear," it said. "Now the coven will hatch anew." The witches began to chant, "Moon and marrow, shell and skin, wake the hollow, call us in." The ground trembled. The stones cracked. Feathers burst from the soil like weeds, swirling around Nora in a spiral. She screamed as they cut into her skin, tiny, sharp as blades. Blood spilled, mixing with the earth. The creature reached out and touched her chest. "Mother," it whispered one last time. "Sleep." Then it vanished, dissolved into light. The chanting stopped. When the sun rose, Ashwood Glen was silent. The sheriff's car sat abandoned on Main Street. The diner door was open, coffee still steaming on the counter. Not a soul in sight. In the middle of the road was a spiral of feathers, black and glistening with dew. At its center, an egg, small, perfect, and warm. A single crow landed beside it, tilting its head. Then, from somewhere deep in the forest, came the sound of a woman singing, low, melodic, and ancient. And if you listened closely, beneath the melody, you could hear a faint cracking sound. And that, my midnight roosters, is how the Coven of Ashwood Glen laid its final curse. Remember, if something hatches after midnight, don't stick around to see what crawls out. Keep your feathers fluffed, your lights burning, and if your coop starts whispering, fly. And before you roost for the night, flap over to the haunted hatchery, where even the eggs come cursed. Until next time, keep it creepy, keep it clucky, and whatever you do, don't feed it the moonlight.